Hi, this is Chad Lang. In this video, I am going to continue reading from Chapter 1 of Recovering Agency, Lifting the Veil of Mormon Mind Control by Luna Lindsay Corbden. And so, where I left off before, just to recap, is we started reading Chapter 1, and we went into, it started in a garden, and then we went through Luna Lindsay's exit story, and we're just going to continue on. So I probably read about 3/4 of it. I don't want to make this like an hour long, maybe half an hour to 45 minutes at most. So each chapter is probably going to be broken into 2 parts. And so we're going to continue on page 9, halfway down the page, the illusion of choice in chapter 1. It started in a garden. Okay. Once aware that their prey is bagged, the slickest operators then emphasize the victim's freedom of choice after tactfully putting constraints on the alternatives. Philip Zimbardo, Ph.D., and Susan Anderson, Ph.D., Recovery from Cults. I'm going to give you the choice I never had. Lestat, Interview with Vampire. My dad was an amateur illusionist. This is probably Luna talking. So I grew up knowing the fundamentals of stage magic. Once you learn a trick secret, it's hard not to see it, no matter who performs it. It's also hard not to share it with others. Misdirection is an illusionist technique used to distract the audience's eye away from sleight of hand or to alter assumptions that might otherwise dispel the illusion. At what point in my life was I choosing to follow the commandments? When I was 5 and I bore my testimony after all the adults encouraged me? When I made myself wake up at 5:30 a.m. every winter morning to walk to seminary in the bitter wind? When I went against my parents' wishes to rush into a marriage they didn't approve of, but that I thought God approved of? Or when I divorced him, which I also thought God wanted? Was it when I followed what I earnestly thought was God's express will to go to the temple, where, without warning, I swore to give all I had to the church in exchange for promises that never materialized? So I want to stop right there and talk about the temple endowment ceremony. You do not have any foreknowledge of what you're going in there for. You are strongly encouraged, like this is the pinnacle of the Mormon experience. You are strongly encouraged all your life. This is where you want to go. This is what you want to do. The covenants with God are so important and so special. And you don't even know what those covenants are. And then when you get there, the covenants aren't even with God. They're with the church. You are essentially selling your soul to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, giving up all your time, talents, and money to the building up of the kingdom. So that is the temple endowment. And before, whenever they took it out in the 80s or whatever, you did it by pantomiming slitting your throat and disemboweling yourself, too, under the signs of the penalties, which were borrowed from Freemasonry. And so my parents did this. All my cousins' parents did this. And some of the people in my generation have done it and some of the people haven't. But nobody compares notes because you're not allowed to talk about it. You have no foreknowledge. You're given to decline before you do it. And you're not going to decline because everyone's expecting you to go through with it. And I've had family members who've gone through with it and have come out the other end going, this is weird, this is culty, there's no spirit to be felt here. So there you go. I didn't get that high. I went as far as baptisms for the dead, but now that I know what those covenants are and I'm not being pushed and indoctrinated, it's like, no, I'm not swearing my allegiance to the church or any religious institution, any institution. I like John Sheridan from Babylon 5 when he famously said in Season 2, "I believe in individuals, not institutions." Continuing on. Or when I decided to finally leave it all. One key to Mormon mind control is the illusion that you are freely choosing to believe and act. Wherefore, men are free according to the flesh, and all things are given them which are expedient unto men. 2 Nephi 2:27. I love how Luna Lindsay Corbden uses Book of Mormon quotes in this book to clearly outline the what's going on here. Freedom. We all want it. It sounds great, right? The promise of freedom is the perfect misdirection. Stephen Hassan, exit counselor and the author of several books on cults, says, with mind control, the agents of influence are viewed as friends or mentors, which cause people to lower their defenses, making them more vulnerable to manipulation. The key to mind control success lies in its subtlety, the way it promises the illusion of control. The individual believes he is making his own choices, when in fact he has been socially influenced to disconnect his own critical mind and decision-making capacity. He believes that he has freely chosen to surrender his free will to God or to a leader or ideology. That is in Stephen Hassan, Releasing the Bonds, which I have a copy. I've not read that one yet, but I've read Freedom of Mind. Both are heavily quoted in here. Mormons will say, we study their scriptures. What other church studies their scriptures like we do? They think that they go into this making this conscious choice, and they have made a conscious choice, but they don't understand how they've been influenced, and that's what this book hopes to reveal. So again, let's be skeptical that it's a cult, and let's go through the material and see if the material holds any weight. Not only does this deception give the church plausible deniability, they're not forcing anyone, but it also traps members far more powerfully than physical bonds ever could. The captive becomes the most vocal defender of the captor. My dad performed an illusion where he would cut a banana from a bunch. Then he dramatically sliced the unpeeled banana to no apparent effect. As he peeled it, the audience gasped in amazement when the pieces one by one fell away. As his assistant, I got to know how the trick worked. Slicing the banana was the easy part. Before the show, with the banana still attached to the bunch, he would carefully pre-slice the banana using a needle and thread. The difficult part of the trick lay in the misdirection. How do you keep the audience from suspecting you've tampered with the banana? By making a big show of letting them choose. In reality, he tricked them into selecting the right banana. He didn't give them an open-ended decision. Instead, he broke the bunch in two, held each up, singled out a random child, and said, "Pick one." The child pointed a finger, left or right, but my dad actually drove the outcome. You see, he never specified the nature of the choice. This is the bunch to keep or the one to discard. My dad kept that under his control the entire time. No matter which they picked, he kept the bunch with the tampered banana. Then he would break that in half again and call on someone else. No matter which they pointed at, he kept the bunch he wanted until he was down to the last banana. Meanwhile, the kids thought they had chosen. They had the illusion of choice. Cult leaders tell their followers, you have chosen to be here. No one has told you to come here. No one has influenced you. When in fact, the followers are in a situation they can't leave owing to social pressure and their fear. Thus, they've come to believe that they are actually choosing this life. If outsiders hint that the devotees have been brainwashed or tricked, the members say, "Oh no, I chose voluntarily." Cults thrive on this myth of voluntarism. insisting time and again that no member is being held against his or her will. Sorry, I'm getting pop-ups here that are distracting me. Okay. His or her will. That is from Singer, Cults in Our Midst. The church frequently forces your hand by offering your choice while controlling the terms, much like the banana trick. For instance, we are told to never blindly trust the prophet. Instead, we're supposed to pray to verify for ourselves that the prophet is inspired. But who defines these rules? It happens to be the prophet. He doesn't suggest the option of looking for the answers from a neutral source. Instead, he sends members to church-approved sources and to the easy, manipulated, emotional confirmation of prayer. I would also like to add that there's a lot of social pressure for being skeptical or doubtful or having a critical mind, which I go over in a lot of my videos. I talk about my personal experiences, and I will continue to talk about my personal experiences, where if you are not the kind of person who just buys into it because you're told to, you are treated like a bad person. And that is the experience I have had my entire life, and I'm not impressed, which is why I do this. Okay. For so long, I believed the illusion that I could question the prophet. All along, I accepted the premise that the prophet is inspired. God is real and inspires prophets. And prayer is the only way to verify prophetic pronouncements. The false choice was between blind trust and trust after following the prophet's own instruction for how to verify his words. Men are free to choose, in quotes. Here's the catch. The rest of 2 Nephi 2:27 says, and they are free to choose liberty and eternal life through the mediator of all men, or choose captivity and death according to the captivity and power of the devil. For he seeketh that all men might be miserable like unto himself. And there's the caveat. It presents a false binary. 2 Nephi 2:27, what it means is you can choose happiness and eternal life through the church, or misery, failure, and death and everlasting shame through the power and captivity of the devil by default, by making any other choice. You can either choose the church or you can choose to go to hell. That's your only option in life, according to the Book of Mormon. The manna on the right or the bananas on the left. Our choices are limited to two. We are corralled into making the preordained one. Passages like these shut down the mind. No one wants to be evil. Everyone is afraid of death and misery. All people are attracted to goodness, happiness, and life. These are presented as diametrically opposed choices. Every middle option flees our minds. We never think to bring our own banana to the magic show. There are other realistic moral options borrowed from other philosophies, such as, and it harm none, do what ye will. All things in moderation. Acceptance of suffering helps end suffering. Nothing is true for everyone. Take what works and leave the rest. There is joy in asking the questions, even when there are no answers. You're smart. Do your best to figure it out. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. There are dozens of different solutions to every problem. You can choose right or left, forward, backward, up, down, sideways, and every angle in between. Turning left gives you different scenery, not eternal death. Freedom comes with responsibility. Consequences exist, although they might not be punishments or blessings from God. When you aren't automatically exalting or damning yourself for simple actions that non-Mormons make every day, you are free to research the facts leading to the full spectrum of possible risks and rewards. Mistakes, in quotes, needs not carry with them the heavy weight of eternal evil, wrong, weak, sinful, or unworthy. These labels lead to manufactured consequences like shame, the loss of blessings, loss of favor from God, and spiritual death. Is it any wonder many Mormons fear decision-making? If it's not as clear-cut as scriptures in Sunday school lead you to expect, it's hard to know what to do. When decisions seem two-dimensional, good or evil, there is pressure and unnamed fear, as if letting go for just a moment will ruin some preordained destiny. There are good reasons for this fear. In General Conference, Apostle Dallin H. Oaks said, in terms of priorities for each major decision, such as education, occupation, place of residence, marriage, or childbearing, we should ask ourselves, what will be the eternal impact of this decision? Some decisions that seem desirable for mortality have unacceptable risks for eternity. In all such choices, we need to have inspired priorities and apply them in ways that will bring eternal blessings to us and to our family members. Dallin H. Oaks, Focus on Priorities in LDS General Conference, April 2011, and there's a website. You can go and tab that in to go see it on churchofjesuschrist.org if you do not believe in the quote. Okay, the pressure is on, and we feel that we ought to just know all the answers. He hath given unto you that ye might know good from evil. He hath given unto you that ye might choose life or death. And ye can do no good, and be restored unto that which is good, and ye can do good and be restored unto that which is good, or have that which is good restored unto you, or ye can do evil and have that which is evil restored unto you. Helaman 14:31. The Book of Mormon is very black and white. We are given these choices, but then we are corralled into choosing the tampered banana. And when we don't automatically know the right answer, we feel unworthy, or other people make you feel unworthy. These are just a few aspects of the complex web of mind control used to limit choice under the illusion of agency. As an apostle, future prophet Howard W. Hunter said, to fully understand this gift of agency and its inestimable worth, it is imperative that we understand that God's chief way of acting is by persuasion, by patience, and long-suffering, not by coercion and stark confrontation. Oh, really? He acts by gentle solicitation and by sweet enticement. He always acts with unfailing respect for the freedom and independence that we possess. He wants to help us and pleads for the chance to assist us, but he will not do so in violation of our agency. Howard W. Hunter, The Golden Thread of Choice, in LDS General Conference, October 1989. Goals and complete deceptions. The Church's methods, while patient and long-suffering, are in fact choice-limiting, coercive, and in violation of free agency. The suppression of stark confrontation inhibits the free flow of opposing ideas and open debate, from which comes true freedom of thought. There must be opposition in all things, including in free thought. Adam and Eve had to eat from the tree of knowledge before they could have agency. Yet a faithful Mormon is expected to be persuaded in a vacuum. Cast aside all contentious debate, shelving serious doubts and questions, and shunning naysayers. You cannot freely choose without considering all the options. You cannot opt to believe when you cannot hear all the pros and cons. You cannot exercise agency while being prohibited from open deliberation. You cannot stave off fraud when you have been discouraged from researching alternate sources. And you cannot openly explore faith when you have been instructed to repress every doubt. There's an exit sign hanging over the gate to Eden. Will you take it? So that is the end of chapter 1. Now, what did we just read? There's a couple points I want to go into here. So, Mormons who are born into the church do grow up in a vacuum. They do grow up in an echo chamber. And I saw that for 9 years in the YSA, being from another place where the church was small and a more liberal area. I cannot stop harping on this enough, because when I got to a more culturally entrenched Mormon area, they did not understand any life idea, any point of view, anything that you could possibly bring up if it was not what they indoctrinate in a large congregation where you have multiple large congregations in a given city. They're shocked, they're appalled, they don't know what to make of it. There is no deliberation. There's a lot of stonewalling. I've seen and experienced stonewalling all my life. Congregations will rise as one and attack a person who says the wrong thing, and it could just be something as simple as, "Hey, Brother Kyle, I don't think we need to be taking the hard line on energy drinks. The general authorities haven't. Yeah, okay, maybe there's a legitimate health concern here, but maybe taking the hard line and saying they're absolutely against the word of wisdom is not the correct approach, and let's discuss this." And all of a sudden, everybody and their dog is just like, rebel, rebel. How dare you? That's so harmful to your body. I don't even think you can feel the spirit if you slam something that disgusting into you. Oh. And that can be quite challenging for a person to just all of a sudden have an entire congregation just like that start dressing them down 6 ways from Sunday. And these are experiences not just that one. These are experiences I've had my entire life. You cannot be a questioning, skeptical person. I recommend that you go see my video, What is Spiritual Abuse? I go over that in that video and read from that book, and I will be continuing to read from that book, but I want to go into Luna Lindsay. The other thing I want to bring up is church history, okay? So Luna Lindsay talks about neutral sources. Now, when it comes to the origins of the Latter-day Saint movement, there is no such thing as neutral sources. There is no such thing as an unbiased opinion, okay? Everyone has their biases. The people in the story have their biases. The people telling the story have their biases. The historians have their biases. The people reading the story, whether you're a believing member of the church or not, have their biases. People from other denominations of Mormonism, like Community of Christ, or Church of Jesus Christ Strangite, or Church of Jesus Christ Bickertonite, have their biases. It is impossible. It is very difficult to separate yourself from your biases when you're reading this material, especially when you're taught this whitewashed, correlated material all your life, when you're taught that you're a bad person for speaking out of turn, when you're taught that you're a bad person because you didn't take out your extra pair of earrings, when you're taught that you're a bad person because you didn't get a haircut, when you're taught that you're a bad person for not quite conforming enough, and then Joseph Smith was doing what now? He married how many women? Brigham Young sent who on their mission and married his wife behind his back? What? How young were these girls that the prophets and apostles were marrying until the 1890 manifesto and even after? What? Like, to hold people to that level of conformity, and then when you discover the truth, to not be biased is extremely, extremely difficult. So yes, church history is very biased, and I can see why the church would want to promote the stuff that that makes it look good, because there is a lot of stuff where, this person incensed against Joseph Smith was telling a lie, and it did cause this damage. And that's true in some cases, and it's true to consider in every case. Whether you're reading Mormonism Unveiled, or whether you're reading, I can't remember the two guys off the top of my head, Ezra Booth, in this book right here, Charisma Under Pressure, Dan Vogel, you might even think he's biased, Richard Bushman, biased on the other side. There's a lot of bias, and it's hard not to bring your own personal biases when you've been taught this kindergeist version of the church. And it is easy to go down rabbit holes where maybe this accusation isn't true or that accusation isn't true. Some of the accusations are very true, and they're very well verified. So that's all I want to harp on about that. And the Book of Mormon definitely presents this very black and white binary choice. And I've had even bishops tell me it's the black and white, isn't it? Well, you have the Doctrine and Covenants refuting some of that black and whiteness later on, and I'll be getting that into some future time. Dan Vogel goes over a little bit of it in this book in his introduction, where in the Book of Mormon it will say eternal punishment, and then in the Doctrine and Covenants it's not eternal, that's just what I say to scare people into repentance. What? So the Doctrine and Covenants needs to amend the most correct book ever written. It needs to clarify and go back on some things. That's interesting. We'll be getting into those cult mind control techniques later as well. So this is going to be half hour here. I'm Chad Lang. We're going to be starting chapter 2, which is what is mind control. Oh, the other thing, I do have a video on brainwashing. You can look that up too. What is brainwashing? Because brainwashing is a bad term. No one thinks they're brainwashed. Everyone thinks that brainwashing means you're tied to a chair and you're forced to believe something you don't want to believe. Luna Lindsay is talking about subtle influence where you're not aware of how you're being corralled, like a sheep, like one of the 99 in the paddock who have no life perception of what's going on in a larger world outside of the paddock. And you know what? Awesome to that lost sheep, because he's following Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, baby. That's who you want to be. All right, so Chad Lang signing off.